honest, only ate an apple. And
It's not like you with your bulk.
no, fucking hell.
You'd be struggling, lad. You'd be anchoring through halfway through.
I know, that's it, lad. My stomach, might hear my stomach go a little bit.
Mate, with this microphone, you can hear everything, so it's chaos. Like if anyone turns up at the door or anything like that, so I'm just dreading no one pops up. Don't quite have the luxury of anything like a studio just yet, so doing it in the kitchen
you've got to
is
work
work
with what you've got at the moment, haven't you? That's what we've got to play with at the moment.
Definitely.
People stomping around in the background, the dogs and that.
yeah. We've not got on today, so it should be sound. But yeah, just I was worried that just someone like an Amazon delivery that you were expecting just comes, absolutely
nowhere.
Yeah, man. So we may as well get into it, aren't we, and see where we're gonna go from here. So obviously, online coach, strength and conditioning background. Let's sort of go back a little bit before that and see if we can sort of unpick what sort of brought you to that situation. So like, what was Danny like when he was little? What brought you to this moment of being sort of the online coach, the S&C, uni, all that? What was like your first memory of wanting to be in fitness and stuff?
Yeah, so if we're going way back, like to when I was a kid, I was always involved in footy. Classic story, isn't it? Of like that kid who wants to be a pro footy player. Like how many people have done that and how many people have went through that sort of period. But that's all it was for me as a kid. I was literally just invested so much into footy. Was decent at footy, as you find out in the staff footy tournament.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Not many people can say, I was a good footy player, and then I'll prove. I'll hold my hands up and admit that you are a decent baller. Like,
yeah, you back me on that. But yeah, that's what it was when I was a kid. I was literally just invested into footy. Just wanted to make that my priority. I wasn't really asked about school as such. Just wanted to go through that sort of childhood of footy, going through academies and stuff. I knew I had the talent to sort of do it, but the mindset weren't there at that age to do it. And like going round on trials through all the different academies and stuff like that, it was all well and good, like through like younger teenage years and stuff like that. But the main thing there was just the mindset that was lacking, first of all. And then ended up packing it in when I was like 16, 17. Got into other things, going out, stuff like that, as you do. Started to not enjoy it as much because of just like constantly going around academies on trial, just sort of like losing hope for it in a way, as you do, like when you get older. And then obviously just chose to go to uni then. I was going through school, I didn't even think like of a career path. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I was lost after that point, like as most people are. Do you know what I mean? If you've invested so much into footy, then you end up lost at that age when you realise you're not going to make it or you don't want to do it anymore, sort of thing. So I sort of went to uni just in a way of not knowing what else to do. If that makes sense. Because I've always been into fitness, I've always been athletic. So I knew I wanted to do something sporty or like physical related. So that's what sort of led me down to the path of going to uni, doing sports science. Well, even before that, I've done sports therapy at Ed Gill. Don't know if you know this, but I went there for a year when I was 18, believe it or not. Thought I wanted to be a physio. Because I was injured a lot when I was younger as well. So I was seeing a physio a lot. I thought, I'd like this job, be decent, sort of thing. But I went to Ed Gill when I was 18, and that year was just like a disaster, basically. Didn't like the course, pissed about most of the year, didn't take it seriously. And that was the year where I was just completely lost in the force. Like, I was in the worst place mentally there, didn't know what to do in my life at all. And then went to sports science, done my degree there, enjoyed it. Got a 2-1 out of it, and then done an S&C Masters as well. So, going through sports science didn't actually cross my mind what I wanted to go into specifically, because it's quite a broad degree, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, coaching didn't really come to my mind at that point. It was more like, what path do I want to go down? Out of like nutrition, biomechanics, S&C. There's all these different paths you can go down after sports science to do a Masters. And then that's what brought me to coaching then, at the end of my third year, sort of thing. And then going into my Masters is when it really just starts to become a passion and something I knew I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Like, I fell in love with training again. I found another purpose in terms of being in the gym, strength training, working with athletes. Completely loved it. I was all in on that for that year. And then it just went from there, really, mate. Went from there. And sort of like got myself into like Aspire MMA gym in Liverpool. Brilliant gym. Loved every single day of work. And there was great. Didn't even feel like work. It was just great to help all the athletes in there. Like get them to peak performance come fight night. And there's nothing more rewarding as well than knowing you've made that difference to that person's performance, and you can see the effect it's had on them. Do you know what I mean?
Class.
And like, there's a lot that goes into a fight camp as well. There's loads of ups and downs. There's loads of mad turns of events of what happens. And for you to just play a small little part in that, it's just like the most rewarding thing ever. Do you know what I mean? And that for me is where it spiraled, and I just went into coaching more and more after that. Working with athletes and just people who just generally want to build a physique then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's class, mate, because like going back, obviously, everything you just said, dead interesting there, but going back to a phase of when you said like you was 18 and you first went to university and you sort of, was lost and in that sort of space of being like, like mentally down and stuff like that. And I think that's such a, obviously we work in a university now, and I think you see a lot of people going through that phase of sort of straight out of college and then think, shit, what am I going to do in my life? And then they just think the natural thing is like, oh, the status quo is to go to uni, do a degree, and then, have my life figured out by the time I'm 21. And that's I actually put that. I was talking to someone on Twitter the other day about it, and I was like, there's this sort of concept now that you need to have your life sort of blueprinted and boxed off by your 21. And like, that doesn't always happen. It's not always the case. I mean, I never went to uni, so, in theory, I'm still sort of out there wondering what I'm going to do. But like, I think that's reassuring, and I think a lot of people is that obviously you had that year where you did something, didn't enjoy it, went away, but then came back and sort of you just said all these amazing things, which we'll dive into a bit more in detail for each sort of section. But what do you think was sort of that? So you're 18, you're in this sort of this difficult position where you've been in higher education, you've been through these academies, and you've had this dream of being like a footballer, and that you've tried, give it everything, tried plan B hasn't necessarily gone to plan. What was sort of the moment that made you think, right, instead of just keep spiraling down this hole, I'm going to fucking do something else and make something? Was there like one moment, or was it like, would you say like compounding moments that built up to this realisation of going and doing your sports science degree?
I'd say it's more a case of like it fell into place at the right time. So to be going through sports science, like I said, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do still. It was sort of just like, as you said, no other option. I couldn't imagine myself doing like an apprenticeship as like a joiner or something else like that. I just couldn't picture myself doing that type of job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I knew I had to do something to do with sport. So figuring that out towards like as I'm going through my degree was the challenge. Like I knew it. So obviously I was into that, and obviously I was all in on sports science. I knew I was going to go through all that. So it's sort of a case of like figuring it out as you go along. And as you said, it's like that's what happens in uni. Most people don't figure themselves out before they go to uni and choose to go. You just go because there's no other option, and like they want to take that time to figure it out, which is fine, which is what I think's good about uni as well. It gives you that opportunity to actually figure your life out a little bit. And then the change in terms of like wanting to go into coaching as well was quite personal as well, in terms of just I was unhappy with my physique, low in confidence at that age as well. So I felt lost from a career point of view, and then lost within myself as well. Like in terms of my physique, my mindset was all wrong. Like at that time, like the priorities weren't there. Obviously, when you're younger, you do stupid shit, don't you? It's just what it is. It's like everyone goes through that phase of like fucking out every weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Self-destructive in it, in a way. It's sort of like, I think, especially, I've said this in another podcast, where we're from, obviously we're from different places as our accents will tell, but like where we're from, the sort of that expectation to be the lads and the boys that go out every weekend whilst being the boys in the gym. And like, it's just, I think personally, and I don't know what you think about this, but like, it's a very hard life to sort of navigate, being the lads in the gym or caring about what they eat, what they look like, training well, and then going out on the piss all weekend. I don't think they combine, but there's that expectation and that sort of societal pressure to have both of them. If you are one, you are then the other, and I think it's getting a lot better. I think like you're seeing a lot more these days where people are like, well, if I'm in the gym 5 days a week and I'm watching what I eat, why am I fucking up?
Yeah, 100%, lad. And that was me throughout my master's degree. That was me through S&C. I don't know how I managed to get the distinction. Like, got over 70%. I was out every single weekend. Fucking had my head in my hands, falling asleep in lectures, in classrooms
Yeah,
on a Monday morning and that. Like, trying to juggle learning about everything in the gym, trying to get a good mark, trying to go out every weekend, trying to balance all these different things. And I knew it just weren't sustainable. That's just like 1 year. You can afford to do that for 1 year. You can't afford to do
yeah,
that for like forever. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a
no,
turning point.
especially when like obviously what you've done, like you said, when you did your sports science, there wasn't necessarily a route in mind for you, and then you completed that, found the S&C like masters, which I know from talking to you in the past, and that it's not an easy masters, but get through, get on. It's very intense and things. So like, do you reckon? Obviously, you said you did go out and stuff for your masters, but was there like a turning point during that, or was it after that when you sort of like, oh, well, I'm not a student now, I need to sort of pull my finger out, or was it just a case of it just naturally happened, and then you just sort of found this path of being obviously a lot more sensible, maybe the wrong word, but do you know where I'm coming from about like your sort of priorities and that?
Yeah, of course. Like through the masters, it was just like it was very much a year of just like learning, but also developing myself as well. That's when I started really getting serious about building my physique, building my strength, stuff like that. So again, we're going back like 6 years now to that. It took me 6 years to get to this point now, where this is like the reason why I got into coaching as well. I don't want people to waste the time and take that long and make all the mistakes I did. And that
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me is just like the main driver of what I do now as well. So obviously, as I've went through that, I've coached athletes, I've coached in Aspire for ages. That sort of fell into place right after uni. So that was a natural sort of stepping stone. I've done like loads of like volunteer work in there, done a lot of free work in there whilst I was in uni. And then obviously after that, went into more paid work there, got the group sessions going, one-to-ones, etc. And then obviously lockdown happened, didn't it, as well? So there
yeah,
weren't much else besides that. And over lockdown, I was literally just training in my back garden, like stuff
yeah,
like
like we
that.
all were.
Like we all were, yeah, exactly. Went down to Wigan to buy some 10 and 15 plates off some engineer who just started making them, charging like 50 quid a plate. Just
Yeah,
doing what you could there, do you know what I mean? But then the main turning point as well is like from where I felt I was low in confidence and I was just a shadow of myself from that age was just being aware of like what the future would hold if I stayed like this. So I don't really think, and I think people can take a lot away from this. It's not necessarily like the problems you have right now. If anyone's watching this and you can relate, you know you're low in confidence, you know you got to make all these changes, you know you've got to do this, that, and the other to get to where you want to be. But I think the more powerful thing as well is just understanding what's the consequences if I don't, what actually happens in the future. How does my life look? How does my future look if I don't make these changes right now? And that was a realization for me one day where I just thought to myself, like, I'm not spending the rest of my 20s in this place that I'm in right now. Like, not a chance. So something's got to
yeah,
be done about it. Otherwise, the rest of my 20s, 30s, and beyond is just going to have a knock on effect for the rest of my life. And for me, that's the bigger picture of what I think a lot of people can think about rather than just the problems that they actually have got. Because we all know we have them problems. Just think of the future, innit?
yeah. I think, mate, that's such a sort of amazing thing you've just sort of contextualized in such a short period of time that you know everyone goes on about compounding, how compounding can be positive, and these little habits and little routines that we do on a day-to-day basis, that'll build us up into the better person that we are. But there's also the opposite of that, like you've just said then. You can compound in a negative way. So, like yourself, for example, myself, I mean, probably different sort of experiences through our self-destructive sort of tendencies that we had. But again, that was sort of for me one day. It's sort of I keep going where this is what is there for me. Like it's not going to be a good outcome. And I think obviously you saying what you've just said there, it just shows that being mindful of yourself and your actions is sort of second to none to being the best version of yourself. So, like going on from that, I was going to ask you about like your inspirations and stuff and what got you into that. But from like speaking to you, it sounds a lot of like it was self motivated, which is amazing. And I think a lot of people can take massive, pointers from that and realize that it's all good having inspiration, which is a fantastic resource to get better. But you've got to have them mirrors turned in. You've got to look at yourself and be like, right, no one else is going to do this for me. It's up to me. And I think what you've just said there, mate, will, I think a lot of people resonate with it and probably kick them up the arse as well. Because someone will be sat there thinking, shit, I'm like that. What if I keep going the way I'm going? So, like, going back to that and stuff, like, was there any, like, inspiration during this time or prior to what helped you sort of, obviously you didn't have anything specific in mind about doing sports science and then the S&C? Or was it just sort of like it came naturally from the football, like you said? Was there any inspiration from any external factors?
No, not necessarily. I mean, with coaching in general, I just enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed teaching people in the gym. I enjoyed the rewarding aspect of that, of seeing people progress with the physique, with the performance, with the strength, whatever it may be. That was just the most rewarding thing for me. So when a case of like a certain person inspired me, it was sort of just fell into place nicely for me. And I just couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. Once I was sort of in Aspire coaching, like after a few months of getting to know what the process is like, because you're out there now, do you know what I mean? You're working with real people. You've got to be on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ball. You've got to use your knowledge. And early on in your coaching career, it's like you can make mistakes a lot, which is normal. And I've made a ton of them. I'll be the first to admit that. But that whole process, I was just invested into it, like properly, and I just knew then that's what I wanted to do, like for the rest of my life, and I still do now. Sort of thing. It's just something I'm like really passionate about, but more so now as well, from like a physique transformation standpoint. So helping people transform their physiques as well, because it's sort of like what I've been through from when I was low in confidence. I hated how I looked in the mirror. I can relate to that with where people are at right now. So I've been through that entire journey. I want to walk other people through that entire journey, but do it a lot quicker than what I did. Don't make all the mistakes I did. Sort of like waiting 6 years to get it right. Do you know what I mean? When you could have just done it in like a year or two to get to the point I'm at now. But that's the one thing I do regret as well. Like I should have had a coach when I was that younger, because like it's naive to try and figure it all out on your own, because you don't get taught this in school as well. Like at
No, I
all, you don't
agree
get
with that.
taught how to build a physique in school. You get taught PE, don't you? But in
Yeah, yeah.
terms of building a physique,
Mm.
like you know that from a coach. That's like
I think I think a coach is something that, again, I agree with you completely. Like 14, 15-year-old me bouncing around gym, doing bicep curls and tricep extensions 5 times a week, thinking I know ball looks like that. Obviously, you're a sort of, your body's changing and like you're still like full of test. You're like a young, like, and you're just ready for go constantly. Like you can train as hard
yeah,
as you want, as much as you want, but like I said this on the last podcast, what I did, it was when I was just training up until probably 19. It was just aimless training. It was just there was no real structure to it. And then when I went to a gym, that was sort of group classes and group sessions. I learned more in that period than I ever did, even from like getting my own qualifications, and things like that. And then ultimately, that made me a miles better coach. Sort of being around coaches, is that something that you can relate to? Like, obviously, especially now, sort of being in these professional environments at like Aspire and places like that. Like, you'll be around other coaches. Is it just something that you just naturally pick up on what these people do, and you think, God, that's good. I'm going to try and implement that.
Yeah, 100%, lad. Like, I think it's all well and good, like learning all this in uni, and obviously S&C was like quite practical for a master's, so there was a lot to learn in the gym there. But I think surrounding yourself with other coaches just gives you a different perspective on things as well. And I've worked with other S&C coaches as well, not just in Aspire and other places as well. And it's like that perspective could just change how you view a certain thing that can improve your coaching then as a knock-on effect. And I think that's a never-ending thing as well. I think as coaches, we should never stop learning. Like, there's always more to learn in the gym. I don't care what level you're at or how much you think you know. The more you sort of know and the more you learn, the more you realise that you don't know, is what I find. Like, the deeper and deeper you go into it, the more there is to learn. And I think it should always be a non-negotiable for coaches, in my opinion, just to like always develop the knowledge. That's something I do every single week. Block out time for that. So if we're talking about habits, that's one of my habits there. I always want to continue to develop my knowledge base because it's evolving and things change. New trends come in, new ways of training that come in. And I think it's important to keep up with that so you can then serve your clients as best as possible as well. If you just sort of not keeping up with that and just being happy with what you know already, all of a sudden you get 5 years down the line, things change and new methods that you don't know about. People are getting results with clients and you're not implementing them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're being outgrown, aren't you? You're sort of stuck in the mud.
And you don't want to be one of those old school sort of
Dinosaurs.
coaches as well, do
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
You
No,
sort
no,
of
I
get,
don't think.
do you know what I mean?
And what you just said there about like, and it's brilliant that, self-development and continued development is sort of something that you advocate and do, especially in fitness, because like I've worked, I'm like got gym instructor qualifications and that, worked in gyms, coached people before, and sort of the trends of fitness are probably one of the fastest changing things about. So you're absolutely spot on. I think like when I started where we work now in 2015, everyone was doing pretty much like CV. That's why our gym's kitted out with like full of cardio machines and that. But now
Too many of it.
within
Too much of
within
it.
5 years, everyone's lifting weights, and like I mean that's such a cool thing to see. But again, like you're thinking that's not a long period of time, 5 to 6 years for the entire sort of trend and sort of demographic of people to just change the sort of training styles. So I can imagine that for you and all coaches, it has to be something that you put in a regular basis. So when you said you did, like you block out time on a weekly basis, what is that? What does that look like for you? Is that like reading? Is it watching videos, or is it like practical stuff?
Yeah, that could be reading, watching videos of people who are all really knowledgeable on like YouTube, like that Mike Israel, whatever his name is, can't pronounce his name, but
Yeah, yeah.
he's want to learn off a lot in terms of hypertrophy and stuff like that. And also just like making time to just go over my systems and sort of like, how can I improve this as a service as well? Like in terms of online coaching. And I've had a business mentor as well, even after uni. So I've
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot, not just from a coaching point of view, but also from a business standpoint as well. In terms of like running an online coaching business. So it's a never ending learning process with both of those things. And it's always something I'm looking to just block out and develop and just sort of check in with myself on. But then, like you said, from a coaching point of view as well, yeah, just watching a lot of videos, studies, stuff like that is like stuff that I typically do for at least 1 or 2 hours per week. I usually like to do that as well, like on the drive home from work or the drive to work. So I find that's a nice integration of bringing that habit in. And this is something someone can take away from this in terms of like, if you've got like a longer journey to work, that's your opportunity to learn stuff that might move the needle forward for you in terms of getting results with your nutrition, with your training. Learn off people whilst you're driving. Make use of that time. Because I spend
Yeah.
20 minutes driving to work. Like, I can either get tunes on, I could get whatever on, or I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
actually spend that time and make it useful and practical for myself to like and boost my knowledge and then go and
Yeah.
act upon that then when I get home, sort of thing.
That's like a great thing, and it makes me feel better because I do that as well. So it's glad that it's not just me, but it's about, like I said, using your time efficiently. And like I said, sometimes you do just want to listen tunes or listen nothing and have that sort of, that monotony of just doing something. But I find like if I'm meal prepping, I'm in the shower or driving, walking, that using that opportunity to like put a podcast on, listen to an audio book or like that's a really cool opportunity to sort of just put all your concentration into that and just let your brain tick away with it. So yeah, I'm glad you said that as well because that's something that I do. So yeah, and I think people can definitely take something away from that. So like a question that I wanted to ask you is, so obviously you mentioned about going into like professional gyms, working in MMA gyms with professional athletes and that. You also work with like Gen Pop and stuff, don't you? General population and that. So what is sort of the biggest like contrast in between them, would you say, or like the biggest challenge of moving from one group to the other, if there
Yeah,
is
so there
any?
is, it obviously is a different demographic altogether. You know for a fact when you're working with athletes, it's a strange thing in a way because what sometimes you might perceive with people like Gen Pop, for example, is like they're coming from a place where they're not very motivated and they haven't developed that sort of like resilience and mindset towards training and being driven towards it constantly. Sometimes like at first it's a struggle and that's like a normal thing because obviously it's all new to them and it's like you're very much learning the basics of training and in that process as well you're developing that mindset to reach the intensities of what you want to reach to grow muscle basically. I think that's very much a mindset thing at the start, but with athletes what you find is sometimes they can train a little bit too hard if you let them. So this is where you've got to be careful in terms of what you give them from a
Mm.
volume output, from a volume standpoint, intensity standpoint. You've got to periodise it a lot better and just sort of keep them in line with what they should be doing, but don't overtrain them because you know for a fact it's going to have a knock-on effect on like other sessions, how a fight camp goes for them, unnecessary risk of injuries. And then in terms of like exercise selection, it's a lot different as well because it's obviously everything sport specific towards improving certain movement aspects, certain things that'll crop up in a fight, certain things that will happen, certain scenarios. You've got to tailor that program suited to what they'll get the best out of in terms of the performance in the fight. So they're the two big things, I reckon. It's like intensity. Don't allow them to train too hard because they will.
Yeah,
If you give
yeah,
them
yeah,
like 2-3 hours worth of gym exercises, they'll do that. And they'll do it to failure constantly. And they'll butcher themselves if you let them do it because that's the mindset a fighter has. Like, they're naturally driven just by the sport itself and how intense it is. So for them, it's just very easy to switch on into that mindset. Whereas someone from like a Gen Pop standpoint might not be at that point yet, but they will get to that point eventually. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Sort of tailoring between the two, and like I can't. I've spoken to someone in the past. I can't remember it yourself or someone else who's worked with athletes and stuff. But there's this sort of general like perception that all athletes are super good in the gym, like just because like the boxers are rugby players or football players, and that's not always the case, is it? Like I feel like from what I've seen and like lads I've played rugby with a decent standard and that they're absolute freaks. But if you get them into the gym, some of them seem lost, and I think like obviously I was wondering on your perspective of that. Like sometimes you see people from Gen Pop who are like naturally more sort of clued in the gym than athletes.
Yeah,
So like they can navigate themselves around better than like, you know, top level athletes.
yeah, I think it's like a mixture really that can happen, 100%. Because if someone's new to the gym, whether they're an athlete or not, they're new to the gym. It's a completely different environment. It's a different sort of way of thinking. It's just it's alien to everyone. If it's new to someone, it's alien to you, isn't it? Like remember when
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
sure you remember when you first started the gym. I do. Like you're like a rabbit in the headlights. Do you know what I mean? You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
walking around. You're just going on machines. That's free and no real structure, no real understanding of technique, form, posture, etc. All these different things that matter. But you can get athletes, obviously, who are quite naturally athletic
Yeah.
and cognitively switched on, especially fighters, who will pick it up straight away. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
sometimes there's a bit of a learning curve, especially for more like younger athletes. That's a very normal thing. Younger people
Yeah.
in general, whether they're athletic or not, they just need to learn how to move the body properly,
Yeah.
do all these different things properly, like bracing, making sure the technique's quality. But then with Gen Pop people, it's just like, it's sort of a similar thing. Depends if they've been to the gym before and you just had no real structure, or they're just brand new to the gym. And it's the same thing with them. They just don't know how to move the body properly. They haven't got a mind-muscle connection with a lot of muscles in the body. They haven't got an understanding of posture, bracing, all these different things as well. So it's
Yeah.
definitely like something that happens on both sides. I think it's just all relative to how new they are to the gym, and it's all
Yeah.
relative to like cognitive skills and the motor skills in terms of absorbing that knowledge and then transferring it practically as well. And that's where I think everyone's different in that sense.
Yeah, and that's what I asked that question because, like, I feel like for someone who, you know, might be listening to this and sort of wants to, you know, the gym for the time, it's never really difficult. It sort of gives them the understanding that even if you're a, you know, like a top performing athlete, even that sort of caliber of sports person or athlete can struggle in the gym situation. And I feel like it's just a case of, like you said, getting in there, learning them things and doing them things. And it ultimately comes back to some of the things you just mentioned and what we talked about before is that probably the best thing you can do when you come into any new environment, be that the gym, you know, be that anything, is get a coach and sort of have someone there who can guide you through that process, like yourself. You know, like you said, you've done this, you've been there, you've done it, you've done the 6 years, and now you're gonna give people your experience and how to cut that down into a fraction of the time. So yeah, I think people take a lot away from that and be like, oh well, if there's these athletes that, you know, need guidance, then I shouldn't be too worried if I need guidance.
Yeah, exactly, 100%, lad. And it's like it's that. This is the reason why I think people lose motivation as well, and they'll have periods where they start the gym and then they'll give it like a month, 3 weeks to a month, and then they'll just give up on it again. It's because they don't allow themselves to get to that point where they can start to see a result initially. So naturally, your motivation is going to go. That's normal. Like, that is why I was going on about this yesterday. It's like, you've got to do the right things first, set the right boundaries in place. So if you're someone who's new to the gym, the first thing I'm looking at right now is just making sure you build a solid foundation around the appropriate exercises that are right for you, for where you're at. Just getting good with them and just understanding intensity and just learning what it's like, what intensity actually is like in the gym. And then allowing yourself to progress. So that might be, I don't know, you're up on your chest press by like 2.5 kg, you're up on your leg press by 5 kg. You're doing that for a while, for a couple of weeks. All of a sudden, you get to week 4, you're like, that feels easy now compared to last week. And I think that little small win is what can then set off that cascade of actually sticking to the gym. Because you're
Yeah,
doing the right things, you've got the right structure for yourself, you're more confident, you're actually seeing a result. So that's where that next wave of motivation can drive you on to the next result. But if you don't have that, it's very easy to just fuck it off, as a lot
yeah,
of
hundred
people
percent.
do.
Yeah,
Notoriously in January, and then it's the end of January, that's what happens. And I think if you just understand that, if you just applied your efforts in the right way, you can get the results you want. Anyone can,
yeah, 100%. And I think
albeit
that's
everyone's
go
at
on.
a different level.
Yeah,
Yeah, albeit everyone's at a different level, and everyone's first initial result might look different. You might be losing your first kg. It might be adding your first 2.5 kg to a bench press. It might even just be getting better form and looking at a video of yourself and thinking that looks a lot better. I'm well more confident with that lift now. Do you know what I mean? These little wins are what compound for you in the gym. And it's something you need to start doing early on, is just nailing those little foundations and small wins, because that's what's going to set you up for the long-term success then. That's to make you stick to it the rest of your life, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you said, them small wins and the things you mentioned about, like better technique, adding like a kilo on, 2 kilos on, losing a kilo, like all my range of motion's more improved. Them come from you, and that's going back to what we said before. Like you've got to turn your mirrors inward. If you're new to the gym and you've been in a month, and you're like, fucking hell, why am I not looking like Bumstead yet? Well, that's completely unrealistic. You know what I mean? If that, it's all well and good to take inspiration and motivation from people, but I think you've got to sort of take motivation and develop discipline through yourself. And like you said, learn that skill of appreciating the small wins early and then compounding that and staying in. Because like when I've coached people in the past, they go through like the newbie gains phase, don't they? Where they're like, fucking hell, I am, how good am I? And then like within 4 weeks, which they are, do you know what I mean? They've earned that, they've done that. But in 4 weeks, when them gains and stuff and them metrics don't start happening as thick and fast as they do, which we all know, do you know what I mean? Like, you'll know now. Like, I've seen you through your bench press phase and stuff. Like, you might do an 8-week block, don't you, if it had like 5 or 10 kilos to that. But for someone who's not in that mindset, that might seem like a wasted exercise. You know what I mean? Like, why am I going to waste 8 weeks for put X amount of time? But you understand early on, your 0.5 of a plate, that progress. I feel like you build that foundation, like you said, to develop discipline and be like, even on the days when, it's shit and you don't want to be there, you're like, well, this is going to get me there. This is going to get me that better form, that better technique.
Yeah, 100%. And that discipline in itself is like a massive thing as well. So the thing I think with discipline as well is just, obviously you can't keep progressing in a linear way every like couple of weeks or whatever.
No,
like
definitely.
As you get past that newbie gain stage, that doesn't happen. There's going to be times where you have setbacks. There's going to be times where you plateau, and then adjustments need to be made to your plan of what you're doing for yourself. It's throughout that period, for me, is what defines your mindset towards long-term results. And I think you just need to, this is a thing I do with clients all the time, is like, set the expectation early on so they know what to expect. I'm going to say to them, look, like, you're going to progress, but it's not going to be every single week. There's going to be those weeks where things happen, things get in the way. You might get ill, you might get food poisoning, like me.
Yeah.
That was a setback I had. You know what I mean? It's not all smooth sailing at all. Things happen, injuries happen, lifts become plateaued. But that's where it really tests your discipline, because you're not motivated at that point. It's very easy to just give up and just go back to square one. And I think that's where you just need to have clarity around the fact that if you just stick at it, keep doing those same habits, keep being consistent with your training, with your nutrition, even though you're going through these little setbacks, that's where you can develop discipline massively. And then once you get through that, you do make the adjustments that you need to make to keep progressing, you'll get a new cycle of motivation then to keep going. And then it's a never-ending cycle. I think it's just like an inverted relationship between discipline and motivation constantly. When motivation's high, you don't have to rely on discipline as much. When motivation's low, that's when discipline comes in. And they're always swapping as you're constantly developing.
It's a seesaw, isn't it?
Getting stronger. Yeah, whatever it may be. And you just need to be okay with that. You need to be content with that. And for anyone who's starting right now, just set your expectation early on of there will be setbacks. That is a normal thing. I have them, clients have them, you've probably had them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like, if you look at it, just think of how long your life is and how long you've actually got to get results.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very small, insignificant thing. I know those 2 weeks I never had in the gym when I had food poisoning. Guess what? They don't mean fuck all now. Do you know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
Compared to like the actual 6 months of like a transformation of what I went through.
Yeah.
I know that was just a tiny little blip.
Yeah.
But like, I stayed disciplined. I'm not gonna lie, I did lose motivation because feel a little bit sorry. I did go to the gym. I was losing my mind a little bit, but I knew I'd get back to it, even though I'd have to like go a bit less intense and just work my way back up again, and gradually get myself back to that point where I can start building muscle again and start building my physique again, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, you've perfectly summed it up, and I think like we're sort of in this, from what I see anyway. So like my echo chamber now on social media is obviously about like self-improvement and different things like that, because that's sort of what this is about. You know what I mean? Trying to be a better version of yourself. And the contrast you see between like the perceptions of motivation and discipline are crazy. Like you see people that are like, discipline should be like, you know, getting up and running on broken legs and just doing it, just turn up every day. And then it's like, you need motivation. You need to be constantly motivated. And like you said, it's a pendulum between the two. And I saw something the other day and it was like, discipline isn't doing what you hate. It's turning up and doing the things you know will make you a better person when you don't necessarily want to do them. And like this perception of like extreme discipline, like Cam Haines and people like that, you know, like they're running fucking ultra marathons with boulders on the backs.
David Goggins.
Like, obviously that's great. Yeah, that's great. And to the average person, that's motivation, because we're never probably, there's going to be a few percentage of us that do that. But I think you need to have sort of the cyclical thing of motivation and discipline. I mean, personally, to me, I think discipline's probably a much higher percentage than motivation that you need. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had, like, you know, I've been brushing my teeth and a tune comes on at like 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, right, I want to go and run a 10K. Like, I'm not going to be disciplined enough to do that every night. Do you know what I mean? Just motivation's fired that. But like, if I made it realistic, I could train myself to become disciplined in doing, you know, like, right, well, 6 o'clock every day, going to lace up, going to go and do the 1s and 2s on the road, regardless if I like it or not. But yeah, it's sort of gratifying to hear you say it, and that I think a lot of people will take it away, because obviously your transformation and everything you've done, which has been like fantastic. I've seen all the hard work you've put in. Do you know what I mean, mate? Like, I've seen you grueling through meals and stuff and grueling through sessions. And that's discipline, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You was probably motivated initially to get to a goal, and then you probably did things in the correct way. You built it up, like you said, them compounding effects that snowball into where you are now. To like you said, even having 2 weeks off for food poisoning, which you was sick. I mean, I'll again.
You see my face after I spewed it in work like 5 times.
Yeah.
Look, mate, I'm great.
But like that. That's it, innit? Like, some people who don't have discipline, that 2 weeks, it'd have probably turned into 10 weeks or forever. Do you know what I mean? And we've all been guilty of that. But I think that's where, like you said, discipline comes in over motivation, and it's sort of remembering it. So like when you was in that situation and you was like, God, I'm dying, like I feel shit, feel sorry for myself. Like, what is it the goal that keeps you on track? Is that what you picture in your mind? It's like, I want to get to this weight of the bulk, I want to be like this, I want to do that, and it's just remembering that? Or is there any other sort of things that you do? Do you like write it down? Do you speak it, or is it just purely fixated in your head to remember the goal and how you want to?
Yeah, I think now for me it's just like, because I've been doing it for so long as well, it's more just like ingrained into my lifestyle now. It's like part of your DNA, isn't it? When you're doing it long enough. So
yeah,
because I've been doing it for years, it's sort of like, I knew for a fact I weren't going to drop off. Like, there's zero chance of that happening. Like, I can comfortably say right now, for as long as I can, and I'm physically able to do it, like, I know I'll be training for the rest of my life every single week. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just that high up now.
Yeah.
As a value of mine, as a priority. Not just in terms of like your physique as well, just like your mindset. So, in terms of just like what I was thinking, going through that, again, I knew I'd get back to that point after it. Like, I had every confidence in myself that I would. I knew I'd reach 90 kg. That was the goal. That's the goal I had in mind from 81 kg when I started back in like November, October time, sort of thing. So I went through that period of like 18 months of just like staying a similar weight, a bit more shredded. And I was there for a while, and I knew I just wanted to put size on, because I just wanted to get into bodybuilding a bit more. That sort of became a bit more of a passion as well. And that's something I love working with clients with now as well. And getting to 90 kg was always the goal. So it's like, doesn't really mean nothing to like go through that little 2 week gap. I just thought to myself, right, I'm in this shit situation right now. Like, it'd be stupid to try and go to the gym. I'd just be going backwards,
Yeah.
and just the sessions will be shit. There will be no sort of intensity. Just back it off a little bit, be patient with it, and just go again when you can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a mental challenge, because imagine just going from like, so we talk about bringing habits in. Imagine removing a habit. That's a habit for years and years. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
So
that fucks
ingrained
you up
into your
so much
DNA
more.
and your
Do you know what I
routine.
mean? Compared to like
Yeah.
not having that habit in place. It's like, it's scary in a way. Do you know what I mean? That's where people can spiral, sort of thing. I knew that was never going to
Yeah.
happen for me. Like, but I'm just giving an example, because it's like, if someone's only like 6 months into the training and they're seeing great results, and then something like that happens, us as humans, how we're wired, it's very natural to just, once that habit's gone, harder to get it back, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like, again, I think it's really good that we touched on that for people who are, like you said, 6 months in. You've been doing this for years now. And I think to hear someone so far along in their journey, so successful in their journey, done what, they've set out to do with their own personal goals, be that the body, everything like that. I think that's reassuring for people to be like, even if you do have, it could be a month, could be longer, but like it will get better. You know what I mean? There's always going to be bad days. I always say like the bad days are there to show us that what the good ones are. So like, if we never have bad days, we'd never have any concept of what good ones are. So yeah, I think that's really reassuring, even for myself, because like I say, I go through fades of it. Like I've coming off like a bad injury and stuff, and like the last year for me has been just to the standard of what I hold myself to has just been shit. And that's been like a really hard, like I spoke to you about it, it's been a really hard mental battle to sort of not hold myself to them standards. But what's more negative? Is it me, pushing my body to the point of where this injury is never going to get better? I'm making myself worse and like fucking myself up in the long term, or pulling myself back, swallowing my pride, swallowing my ego, like you said, lowering the intensity and thinking the long game. Like you said, we've got all this time here. Like, look, most of us touch wood,
Exactly. I'm still
luckily and
young.
stuff. And I think exactly, and I think you've got to say like it's perspective, isn't it? And I think that sort of ingrained into everything that we do. Like I think a lot of people sort of want everything now, which
That's the
doesn't
way we
happen
live
in
it.
fitness. And things like that. So to come from the horse's mouth like yourself, someone who does it alongside, you've got a full time job, you run a business, you do all this on the side. You're proof in the pudding that you can do this regardless of your situation. Not even if it's just your full time job, which some bodybuilders do and stuff like that. So there was sort of two things that I wanted to ask you. So like, if I was a new client to you, and like obviously I came in, I wanted to get fit, I wanted to get my nutrition on track. Could you pick maybe, like this might put you on the spot a little bit, but could you pick like, 3 habits of like 3 things to ingrain into your routine that you would suggest to, someone new to the gym and what they wanted to do to keep them sort of on track, accountable, things like that. Is there anything that you would suggest working with all these people in the past? One that comes to mind?
Yeah, 100%. So when anyone joins DF coaching, this is something we establish in the first week or two before we even get into the nitty gritty of like sticking to the plan and what the plan is. I want to set the right foundations from the start for you. I think number one thing that's worked for me massively is just meal prepping. Like, I block out an hour religiously every Sunday to prepare meals through to Wednesday, because I know they're the busiest days in work. I know I'm going to need 6 meals across that day, across all them days, so 2 meals each day. I think doing that is just massively underrated for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people do have the time to do it. I think it's more just a priority issue rather than a time issue. it literally takes an hour,
Yeah,
and this is
building that
something we have a
habit.
training on. We have a short webinar on in the vault that I get people to watch straight away, all our clients to watch, just to do it dead efficiently. And it's like, you're not leaving your nutritionist a chance. Do you know what I mean? When you do it, I
Yeah,
mean, what's
yeah.
the alternative? Like, if you're looking at my example here, you know about the available options in work. There's next to none, is there? There's a Subway, Catalyst, there's a
No.
few fucking butties at reception.
Yeah.
Like, are you telling me I'm going
Yeah,
to
like
build a
coffee
physique
shops and stuff like that.
going to all them places and eating from there? Do you know what I mean? It's not going to happen, is it? And this is the
Yeah.
mistake I made massively
No,
when I
not
was
at
younger
all.
as well. So, like, going through uni and stuff, when I didn't really take nutrition seriously, I'd just be having, like, Tesco meal deal or fucking Greg's or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And that's just not going to
Yeah.
build you the physique that you want. It's just simply not. And this is the thing that probably is tempting for a lot of people, because it's just convenient. It's easy to do on your work break, whether you're an office worker or you're labourer, whatever it is. You'll go to these type of places. You won't get the nutrient quality that you need to even drop body fat. You won't be in a deficit, probably because you're just having such a calorie dense sort of option there, meal. But at the same time, you might not be eating enough. So, like, you might not be eating enough to build your physique and bulk in a surplus if that's what you want to do. So I think, like, for
Yeah.
me, there's literally no alternative. Like, that is a non-negotiable. And I think it's just a non-negotiable as well for a lot of people, just for that reason of, like,
Yeah.
you're not leaving your nutritionist a chance. You're probably saving yourself a bit of money, and it just makes it easier to stick to the plan. You're going to stick to the plan because you know you've prepped that food. There's much less chance of you just going, like, okay, I'm going to get a Domino's or a Mackey's or whatever, just out of convenience. Just organise yourself ahead of time. So that's one habit straight away I'd implement. The second habit would probably be hydration. So for
Yeah.
me, that makes a
Love
massive
that.
difference to how cognitively switched on I am in the morning. If I'm not hydrated, like within the first half an hour of waking up, I've just brain fogged all morning. My productivity goes down. I'll probably get
Yeah.
to the gym later on in the morning or in the early afternoon. My contractions won't be as good. I just won't be as switched on for the session and in tune with actually intense training. Obviously, we all know the benefits to hydration. I'm not going to bore people with, like, why it's important, but very practically, I like to aim to just get a bottle of water down me straight away within the first half an hour of waking up, and supplement on hydration tablets as well, alongside
Yeah.
obviously having your coffee if you're into coffee as well. I think that's a solid habit
Yeah.
I've had right now, like, for a while, and it's something that just helps me get started with the day, and for all the reasons I mentioned previously as well. So that's the second habit. The
Yeah.
third
Class.
habit, I'd say, for people who are very busy, which a lot of us are, a lot of us have got busy lives, haven't we? I think it's important to gain
Yeah.
clarity on scheduling in your sessions, your training sessions. So this is a common one that crops up all the time. People I speak to generally, whether they're clients or they're not clients, they just don't think they have the time for the gym. When again, it comes back to, most people do have the time, even if it is just 30 minutes on your lunch or 30 minutes before work, 30 minutes after work. It's very much just a priority issue. And I think it's just understanding how to balance all these different things. So if you have got kids, if you have got a busy job, you've got all these different things that go on in a day that need to get done, housework, etc. I think organising yourself a calendar is a game changer. It has been for me. And that's the reason why I can juggle running the business, going to Edge Hill and doing my PTs, meal prepping, and then slotting in around that when I can actually train. I'll give you an example. Like, when I'm in at 1 on a Tuesday, I know for a fact I'm going to do all my sort of business tasks in the morning, check in with clients, send some emails, and then I know for a fact at 11 o'clock I'm going straight to the gym to train right before work. And it'll be the same on a Wednesday when I'm in at 4. I'll go to the gym at 2. On a Friday when I'm in at 4, I'll go to the gym at 2 as well. On a Thursday when I'm off, I'll go on my lunch. I just know when I'm going to train at the
Yeah.
same times every week. Now, I've obviously got a different schedule to most people. We work like a 9 to 5, but I'll say to people, right, are you a morning person or an evening person? When would you prefer to train? Okay, I'm a morning person. I don't want to go to the gym after work. I just want to relax, sound. schedule that into the diary, even if it's just 3 times a week to start off. Schedule that in on the days you think you can do it best, and just stick to that. Literally stick to that. And I think once you have it there, and you know exactly when you go, when you build that routine of going, rather than just being like, oh, I feel like going to the gym, I'll go. I don't feel like going to the gym, I can't be asked. And rather than making it spontaneous, just schedule it in, and you'll be surprised.
It's too wishy-washy in it if it's not the. Yeah. Have you come across the concept of there's a guy called Ali Abdal, and he's like a productivity guy, big on like YouTube, and that got a great podcast, just released a good book, and he got me familiar with a concept similar to what you're saying. It's called the perfect week, and it's like create a calendar. It doesn't have to be your calendar; it can be a new one, and schedule in your perfect week. So when you train, when you work, when you go out and grab your coffee, when you read your books, when you go, play on your PS5 or your Xbox or something like that. And what does that week look like? Incorporating everything you do. And when I did that, I was like, wow, there is obviously to a fine degree, but like when you actually see your week, a lot of time here that I'm not utilising. And then when you see it actually wrote down in front of you in sort of like, here's X, Y, Z, right, so here's I'm training at 7 till 8, I'm back, I'm having a shower, I'm going grabbing a coffee, then I'm in work. And then when I get home, I'm making tea, doing my meal prep, and then I'm relaxing. And then you think that like you can structure your time more efficiently. And if that's your perfect week and you can do that, in theory, you should come out of that feeling pretty, happy, productive, that sort of thing. So that's interesting that you've mentioned that as one of the key habits that you'd advise to people. And I think people will take a lot
100%,
from that.
lad, and it looks a lot different for everyone as well, depending on your life. Everyone's life is different in a unique way, and we're all driven by different things and what we like to do in our spare time. And it's even scheduling in downtime as well, and just doing things.
Yeah,
I
100%.
think that's just as important, like from a mindset point of view.
Yeah,
It's all well and good scheduling your meal prepping, your training, all this and that. Make time for the things that are important as well. So it's your life.
Yeah.
You get to like build it in whatever way you want. Do you know what I mean? Essentially. So schedule that weekend however way you want to do it. If that's something that you can be consistent with, then you're onto a winner. You're going to get results. 6 months down the line of sticking to that schedule is where you'll see that reward, and it's delayed gratification of doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to incorporate rest and recovery. I think another thing that we see constantly in today's like society is this grind culture. Like fucking sleep when you're dead, but it's bollocks. We won't bore people with like the benefits of sleep and that because everything's out there to see it. But like it's so important. Like you'll probably testify, especially in like a fitness aspect, how important recovery is to getting muscle growth, getting better results in the gym and stuff like that. So it's absolute bollocks when people are like, fucking late nights, early mornings. There is an element of that which will creep in, don't get me wrong. But if you burn out, you can't do anything. I've suffered from burnout. I've pushed myself too far, as I imagine you probably might have in the past, you know what I mean? And everyone's like, is burnout real? And I'm like, once you experience burnout, you know it's real. You know what that is when you've had it.
Yeah, 100%, lad. Like, recovery probably is more important. Like, that is like the biggest foundation, because I always say this in terms of like our sort of 4 key pillars in our program. We have training, nutrition, mindset, and recovery. I feel like they're your 4 key pillars in terms of changing your life, getting results. Once one is affected, all the others are as well. Is what I think.
Yeah.
If your recovery is affected, your training's going to be shit.
Yeah.
If you're not getting enough sleep, your nutrition's going to be affected as well negatively. You're going to make worse choices because you're more lethargic. Same with your mindset as well. If you're not getting the recovery in, you're not as disciplined, you're not as sort of motivated when you need to be.
Yeah, your well-being will plummet.
It's a knock-on effect between them four key pillars, in my opinion. And that's what we base everything on, in terms of just like ensuring they're all in a good place, and that's going to set you up for long-term results then. Recovery is massive, lad. And it's from both perspectives of like, not just like a sleep point of view as well. It's nutrition as well. Nutrition's a massive part in recovery. And even like not overtraining yourself in the gym, not overexerting yourself. It's not even just training related, it can be business related as well. Like I know I can suffer from burnout just from working too hard in here or just spending too much time doing
Yeah.
things whilst on top of everything else as well. Do you know what I mean? Spending longer than I should be doing
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
without like giving myself a break or like I didn't even go on holiday last year really. I haven't been away in ages because I just wanted to spend like the
Yeah.
whole year just working and just building this foundation
Yeah.
to where
Yeah.
it's at right now. And I still do want to continue that, but like if that's something that I could definitely improve on, it's just avoiding that burnout sort of thing as well.
It's funny you mentioned that because you just segue perfectly into like the last thing I'll ask you. So like obviously grilling you a little bit now, but I think it's interesting for sort of see this perception from people is like if you could have a habit that you don't currently do or reintroduce a habit that you've had in the past, like what would that be? Do you have a habit that comes immediately to mind that you don't necessarily do or did and don't?
Yeah, there's a few to be honest. There is a few. So, like I said there about burnout, I think I do spend too long just working. Like obviously outside of bed jail. If I'm not in their jail, I'm in here most of the day doing things. Do you know what I mean? I think I benefit a lot from having work blocks where I schedule in time to just rest. So it's like 15 minutes to just reset, have a little break, and then go again. Because obviously I've got all these things scheduled in on my calendar, and like sometimes it's not realistic in terms of just sticking to that. A lot. Sometimes I'll go over that and what I'm meant to go over because I just want to get shit done. That's just the way I am. But that's a
Yeah,
one-way
yeah,
ticket to just getting burnt out if you're constantly like that. And I've had that over the past year a lot of times because it's all very new. Like your first year of just like it's a new venture, isn't it? So there's a lot of new things you've got to adjust to, new habits to bring in, like content creation, like talking to a camera is like another one that can burn you out. Do you know what I mean? Like there's all sorts of different things you can probably relate to that as well. In terms of just getting your content right and overthinking your content a little
yeah,
bit. And then obviously the coaching side of things as well, making sure all my clients are looked after and they're all getting catered for and they're all getting the support they need constantly. And all these different tasks as well, emails, just
yeah,
keeping up
yeah.
to date with, studying. There's loads of different things that it's very easy to get yourself overwhelmed with. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Yeah,
just having that
consumed
bit
by
more
it, innit?
time will just help me find that balance a bit more. But it's just one of those things like you're not really supposed to find balance when you're trying to build something. Do you know what I mean? Like it's normal to feel
No.
overwhelmed as well. So it's like I'm in that mindset. But
Yeah.
that is one habit I'd have definitely. Just a little bit more of a break scheduled in across the day,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I'd like to go outdoors more. Like I don't feel like in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
day. Like what I used to do in the summer, sometimes it was like just as soon as I wake up with my coffee, just go outside and just either sit outside or get me steps in. And I think as I'm going into a cut now,
Yeah.
that's a habit I'll definitely bring back as well. Because that just sets me up for the day as well. Just getting outside in the sun, it just puts you in a positive mood and a positive mindset. You can like check in with yourself almost doing that
100%.
sort of thing, can't you? So
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
two things I
definitely.
definitely do and bring back in.
Perfect, mate. I think they're like both like really good things and things that other people will think and be like, yeah, I should probably do that as well. And like that's the point of this podcast is to sort of show like people with everyday lives who, you know, do more than maybe the average and that and how you implement your routines and your habits, but also having that mindfulness to be like, I could do X as well to improve. So I mean, we've just smashed over an hour out and it's been
It's like
brilliant,
quick
mate.
now, isn't it? But they are.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, some of the stuff he said that was fantastic, and myself included. A lot of people can take a lot away from what you said. Obviously, being within like the professional capacity, Gen Pop, of fitness training, body transformation, and stuff. So thank you very much for your time, mate. Appreciate it. But before we go, just let people know where they can find you and they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so Danny Fletcher _coach on Instagram. If you want to apply for coaching, there's a link in my bio. It's a short application form. Once you fill that out, I'll be in touch with you and we can just talk about your goals in a lot more detail. See if the program's the right fit for you. Even if you just need some advice around where you're at right now and how to get from A to B in terms of your results, just drop me a message. More than happy to give out any sort of free advice and just support people with that as well. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jack. Nice one. Good to be on.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, and I'll see you in a
Yeah,
couple of
probably
days,
lad. See you
probably.
in a bit.
See you a bit, Matt.